Cult Cinema Podcast.
Spandex, it's a privilege, not a right.
Hike the planet!
Shut up and get in the car!
All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 11 of the Cult Cinema Podcast. We're talking about Hackers today.
Yeah, what did you think of Hackers?
Here, I have a quote here that basically explains it perfectly. It's from an animator on YouTube named Noodle. He claims it is the most excruciatingly 90s media he's ever seen in his life. And I could not agree more.
It's so painfully 90s.
Yes.
It really is.
It does not hold up at all. I don't think it holds up a single bit. But I love this movie.
Right? It's amazing.
It's so good. Oh my goodness. So
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah,
at least.
There's a few interesting cast members in this, who a lot of kind of got their start a little bit. Like some of them were in some other parts before. But you've got Angelina Jolie, known for Tomb Raider. You got
everything
and a
else.
bunch of other stuff. You got Matthew Lillard playing basically just Matthew Lillard in this movie. Also known as I know him as Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo movies because that's what I grew up watching him in.
Stu Mocker, bro.
Don't know anything about that. And then you've got Johnny Lee Miller, who's our protagonist, Dade, who is known for being in Trainspotting and being Angelina Jolie's ex-husband.
And look-alike brother. They literally look like brother and sister.
They do look very similar. It's very weird, but yeah.
Yeah,
and
it is.
In this movie, Johnny Lee Miller, I think he's from the UK or Ireland or something. I think.
Yeah, his American accent's terrible.
Yeah, no, he does not know how to talk like an American. It's like watching Tom Hardy try to do an American accent. It just doesn't work.
It's the L's and the S's.
Yeah.
They can't get it.
And it's just, I feel like in this movie, he's constantly talking like louder than he needs to be in the moment. And it's just like really awkward with the way he talks. And I don't know if that's just him as an actor or the way that the character is written, but it's very strange.
Yeah.
But
all right,
let's get right into it. I'm excited.
Let's get into it. So, kind of like you said a second ago, this film is truly 90s. It's kind of the perfect like time capsule for 90s subculture,
for sure.
I feel like. Because not only does the movie focus on teenage hackers, which is kind of relevant even today, but it also embraces like really other fun things that were, although now they're super dated, the subculture from the 90s. So like the underground clubs that you kind of see throughout New York, the rollerblading, the payphones, dial-up internet, house and techno music everywhere, video gaming, all that kind of stuff really started, getting super popular, of course, in the early 90s. And let's not forget the most popular trend from the 90s, probably early 90s. Everything is fucking leather. Everyone wears leather at all times, even when they're sleeping.
Yeah, there's this kind of like, I think I was watching like a Red Letter Media review. They were talking about how like it has this kind of like weird cyberpunk aesthetic too. Like all of like the punk scene, it's very like, I don't know. Dade has this cool like padded jacket that I actually kind of like and like would totally wear.
Want the jacket.
Yeah, it's really cool. But I feel like Matthew Lillard's character, Serial Killer, is his name in the movie. I feel like he's got the most kind of like out there aesthetic with like the braids and like the weird like mismatched clothing and everything.
He's almost more like grunge hippie.
Yeah. Because I mean, there's that.
I guess that'd be a good way.
There's a line where he's like, I think it's Phantom Freak, or I only remember them by their like handles, not their actual.
That's
like,
okay.
Yeah.
That's how we're gonna refer to them.
Perfect. But he like references that his like parents missed Woodstock, and he's been making up for it ever since. Hence the aesthetic. So makes sense.
Yeah, it fits.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure.
So, like you said, this is from 1995, directed by Iain Softley, and big names. That you already kind of went through. This is Angelina Jolie's first movie that she was ever in, first feature film. So we open with a suburban neighborhood, and there's FBI swarming all over a home, clearly about to arrest someone. And we cut inside to the house, and we kind of go back and forth between the cops arresting who we'll now know as Dade Murphy, and he's 11, he's young at this time, to his court hearing.
Which I have to say, who names their kid Dade? I thought they said Dave at first. It was like, no, there's a D instead of a V. Are there any, like, do you know anybody with the name Dade, or have heard of anybody else with the name Dade?
No, never.
I don't know. Maybe, like, because you have to think is, like, if he's 18, and, so the court hearing takes place in 88, so this kid was born in, like, the late 70s, so that means that his parents were naming him Dade in the late 70s.
Yeah, I don't know where it came from. It's not a popular name that's repeated throughout any other 90s movies, so I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they were just trying to be quirky. It's like, oh, he's a different kid, so he gets a different name.
I guess. And they really only use, so they refer to, like you said, the other hackers in their hacker name most of the time. We'll go over them when we get to the introduction of the characters through the scene by scene, but they don't really refer to him as anything else but Dade.
Yeah.
Even when they know his hacker handle, they still call him Dade pretty much the whole movie. So maybe it was an important person in the director's life or somebody's life. I don't know.
Maybe.
But anyway, we learned that Dade, at 11 years old, hacked into some financial systems and crashed 1,507 systems in one day, causing a 7-point drop in the stock market. And again, he's only 11, so this is very impressive. The judge finds his family and puts him on probation. He doesn't go to jail or anything. And he's not supposed to touch a computer again until he's 18. So as the credits kind of roll after this courtroom scene, it's just like a slow-mo of them coming out of the courtroom and, you know, paparazzi everywhere, things like that.
Which, can you imagine not having to go, like, in today's age? Like, back then they were, like, very limited, and I'm sure, like, at this point for this 11-year-old kid, computers are a big part of his life. I mean, hell, he managed to take down all these systems. But, like, can you imagine nowadays? So he's 11. So having to go, like, starting today, you have to go 7 years without touching anything that's a computer or even a phone.
Right. Right. And I mean, there wasn't, you know, as he got older, there was probably, like, video games and stuff, but could he even do that? Like, I don't know how strict his parents really were. I mean, we kind of get a vibe of the mom later, and she probably wasn't that strict about keeping him off the computers, / he probably found a way to get around it anyway. So we have some pretty short opening credits, which I love. Awesome. Get to the point. And then we see a grown Dade and his mom. They're in a plane, and they're flying over New York City, so they're clearly moving there. We do get some really cool shots through this movie of New York, old New York, whether it's highlighting some of the underground stuff that's in New York or just cityscape shots. They're really cool, I think.
Well, I know that
really
there was one shot, I think it was in the beginning where they're in the plane or something. You see this, like, really wide shot of the landscape, and the footage looks very, like, grainy and off. Because apparently, like, what's known as, like, the MetLife building in New York, and has been since the late 80s, like, the footage from there must have come before then, because that building is labeled something else in that shot. I forget the name of it, but yeah. But it's just, like, the use of stock, like, modern, like, an old-time use of stock footage. So
fair enough. I thought it was cool. I thought a lot of the over shots were pretty cool.
I just thought that kind of bit was funny.
I guess I didn't notice it was blurry, so you're right. Then we immediately cut to Dade sitting at a computer, of course, and
it's his 18th birthday. He's allowed to be back on computers now.
And we don't know that right away, but we assume, obviously, since he's on it, he's 18, and he's trying to take over a TV network.
Which he must have been doing a lot of reading, because he just, like, was able, after 7 years of not being able to touch a computer, was just, like, instantly able to do something like that.
Well, and you can tell the way his brain works is he does a lot of things by memory. So he probably, read and just probably memorized a lot of stuff. Because keystroking and hacking is a memorizational tool in itself. Like, you have to remember code. You have to remember how to get back to where you came from. So, I mean, I'm sure, he just memorized a bunch of stuff like that. The mom knocks at the door, though, and he tells her what he's doing, taking over a TV network, and she's like, all right, we'll go to bed soon. And happy birthday, because, yep, now you're 18. Mm-hmm. So the mom's obviously not at all surprised with his response. So this is where I assume he'd still been using computers. So she probably was like, well, whatever. You're not doing any harm. So whatever. We then see Dade call the TV network, and he says that he's Eddie Vedder, which is hilarious. Another 90s reference. And he's from accounting, and he had a power surge at home, and he needs the guy's help. And the guy's basically like, well, I don't know shit about computers. And he's like, it's cool. I just need the little numbers off the boxy drive thingy right next to you. You should see them on the top. Mm-hmm. And he's like, oh, okay. And reads him I think it's just numbers, if I remember correctly.
It's like, I think it would have been the MAC address for the router.
Sure. And sure enough, he's in the system. So super easy to do that, apparently, mm-hmm. in this movie anyway. We then see, again, the computer 90s electronic graphics everywhere. And he's literally changing the programming, though, for the network. Also, side note, he's wearing sunglasses inside at night.
But he's cool like that. His name is Dade, and he hacks computers.
You must wear the sunglasses.
Yeah. He's got this, like Duke Nukem thing going, like in that moment with like the sunglasses and the blonde hair, and he's like acting all like slick and badass and shit while he's hacking this TV station.
Yeah, that's a good reference.
Yeah.
For sure. So as he's hacking away and changing the TV station, he finally comes on the one he wants. But then somebody interrupts his connection and asks what they're doing on, I think, their turf or like in their area or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they're calling themselves Acid Burn. So it's another hacker. And Dade's kind of surprised that he's running across another hacker so quickly. But Acid Burn ends up warning Dade, who goes by Zero Cool.
Used to go by Zero Cool. That was his old handle.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, because he corrects it because he's like, he's about to type Zero Cool, and then wait, no, I can't go by that anymore because people will know that it's me again if I'm ever caught. So he starts going by Crash Override.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. Sorry. You're right. He does go that route. So Crash Override is his handle for this time. And they kind of have this back and forth scene of them clearly like hacking together and fighting for control of this TV station.
You see the two arms like fighting over the tape.
Yeah. And then Acid Burn ends up winning because his connection gets terminated. Mm-hmm. And then we cut to the morning, and his mother is like, did you stay up all night again? Because I guess he's been up on his computer for a week straight, she says. She asks him if he likes girls, right? Can you get out and do something else besides sit behind a computer? The back and forth with the mom and him in this movie is pretty funny.
Yeah.
She's a cool mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. He then gets in the shower. She walks into his room, and he hooked the computer to the phone. Hello, dial-up. But also, that shit's expensive, and she is pissed because it will run her phone bill up.
I don't think I'm young enough to where I don't think I've ever had to experience dial-up.
I did.
At least as far back as I remember. I don't remember ever having to have. I don't remember a phone ever being next to the computer.
Yep, I started using computers at roughly 6 or 7. Mm-hmm. We had dial-up. We had a separate line in a room for the computer and the phone. So you unhook the computer to use the phone, hook up the phone, or hook it back up to use the dial-up. My parents ended up getting 2 lines, which a lot of homes didn't do. So if you were on the computer, you couldn't be on the phone.
Okay. So
I don't know how this setup is for the movie. I'm assuming it's the latter. There's no way he could get on the phone if he's on dial-up. Mm-hmm. So, but it charges you just like a phone bill. So let's say you are charged X amount per the minutes you're using, whatever your phone plan is. Mm-hmm. The dial-up internet charges you exactly the same way, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Well, I think now it isn't. I'm still on my parents for my phone, but like, isn't it more like you pay a certain amount per month for like data? Like, I don't know how it works. Like, do you still get like charged per the amount of data you get, even if you have like unlimited?
No, I don't think so. And then, of course, with Wi-Fi, you get a flat rate for megabits per second.
Because I know that, like, when I was younger, I had a certain amount of minutes on my phone.
Right. Yeah, a lot of phones were, especially for kids, they had that too.
Yeah. Shout out my old school LG track phone that I T9 texting on. At least I'm young enough. At least I'm able to remember that.
Yeah.
I played so much Sudoku.
Oh, good God. That is how dial-up worked, though. So it would charge you, and if you're sitting on a dial-up computer like he probably was straight up all night, 12 hours maybe?
Sure.
I can't imagine what that phone bill was. Hundreds and hundreds of dollars, I'm sure.
Yeah.
She tells him, look, if you screw up again, you can't get into college. And honestly, who cares? This kid is a fucking genius. He could go work for NSA or anybody he wanted to, probably. But, moms, they want you to go to college. Mm-hmm. His mom says she's sorry they had to move in his senior year. Ugh, I've been there. That sucks. I moved a lot as a kid in really important time frames, like 6th grade, 8th grade, freshman year. Like, it sucked.
I had moved through a couple schools, but that was like when I was real younger. Like once we hit like early elementary school, I kind of stuck with the same system and rode that out through high school and everything. So yeah. She tells him she had to take a new job though, because she's clearly paying off the fucking fines he racked up at 11 from that court ruling. That it was like 45,000 at the time, which I think is like adjusted for inflation is like closer to like 100,000 now or something like that. Yeah, I mean it wasn't a huge fine, but clearly for even still $45,000 is a lot of money to have. Yeah, of course it's a lot. Yeah, of course. Totally get it. There goes Dave's college money. Yep. Yeah. So now he's got to get in on his own merits. Yep. She says, again, I'm sorry, had to take the job, but this is a city that never sleeps, so you're going to love New York, because clearly he's not sleeping. Mm. We then cut to Dade on roller skates in some awesome 90s techno, which is through the whole movie. This movie has a bumpin' soundtrack. I could not get over how good it is. You've got your techno, you've got your Rage Against the Machine ripoff band. You got... it's so good. So good. Yeah. Lots of house music, which is awesome. So good. And I don't really actively listen to that kind of stuff anymore. I used to a lot early high school, but I was never into it. But every once in a while, through my Spotify playlist, it'll pick up some house or techno, and I'm like, all right, all right. I'm into it. Dubstep was really big in the early 2010s. Oh, still dubstep all the way. Yeah, for sure. This is the 90s version of dubstep. Yeah. If they didn't have this music, we wouldn't have dubstep today. Mm. So Dade rolling around on his roller skates, because again, that's what the cool kids do. Gets to school. He goes up to some guy on a payphone. We'll learn who that is in a minute. And he's like, man, I'm lost. Can you help me? He's like, no, not going to help you. And he finally does make it to the office, though. And then we're graced with Angelina Jolie and her short boy hair, which is amazing. And again, leather everywhere. She ends up showing him around and getting him to his first class. Then some guy comes out of the classroom and says, hey, are you new? Talking to Dade. And he says, yeah. And he tells Kate, tell him about the pool. And she goes, oh, yeah, there's an Olympic-sized swimming pool up on the roof. If you take the stairs to the left, you can get up there. So then we cut to the roof with clearly a bunch of other new kids, I assume, because they didn't know that there's, in fact, no pool up there. Mm-hmm. And the door locks directly behind him, so they can't get out. Which I have to say, why are they all infatuated with a swimming pool? Why are they so in? He has a class that he's supposed to be in, but he had to go check out this Olympic-sized swimming pool. Is it that? Yeah, I don't know. It's water in a giant hole in the ground, or in the roof. I'm not even sure why this is included. Yeah. I think it's included to make it so he doesn't like Kate. But you could have done something else with that. So I don't know. I don't even know why it's a weird bit. I can imagine. I can still it's the way that she tricked him into going onto the roof and getting locked up. It's just the pool. I don't know. I think I'm thinking too deeply into this, but it was bizarre. No, I agree. I think you could have gone another direction, but fine, pool. So it starts raining though, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. So he does actually get wet, and then we see Dade walking back to class.
He passes Kate, who laughs at him, obviously, and he death stares her, so now we know that there's a rivalry here. We then cut to Dade in class, and he is on a computer, of course, and he has hacked into the school's computer system and is changing all of his classes to be in the same classes as Kate. We then see the guy from the payphone sitting behind him, kind of with his mouth agape, just like, I can't believe you did this.
And he's watching skeleton porn.
Yeah, and he's not doing anything, but...
He's literally just watching 2 skeleton 3D models just go at it on his computer screen.
Yep, and that's all he's doing with his time. Dade's over here hacking into, supposedly secure computer systems.
I have a funny story about like school computer systems and the way that they're set up. So my freshman year of high school was the year that they implemented that, like, okay, everybody's going to get a laptop to do their schoolwork. We're going to hand out everybody a laptop. It was really cool. They were like MacBooks, so like a fancy school. And so
they were MacBooks.
They were yeah, they were 2015 Mac.
Holy crap.
They were 2015 MacBook Airs, yeah. And so they had to put everybody on the same network, but there was a way that you can go into the user settings on the Mac, and you could like mess around and you could see all the different people on the domain, and you could see both their username and the passwords for their domain, meaning that if you knew that the password for their domain account, you could get into their school Gmail account and their what was called, I think it was called Power School, which is how we were able to view our grades. So you could go in and like see people's grades and like fuck with their email and stuff and like sign into their email. It became like
that was clearly missed.
Yeah, no, it became like a huge thing. Like everybody was like messing around with it, and eventually they found a way to encrypt the passwords, so you can see people's usernames on the domain, but you can't see their passwords. So they eventually caught on, but yeah. So
I wonder if so you're saying if you saw the domain and password of like an administrator, you could probably just change your grade.
Yeah. Oh, I don't. Yeah, possibly. I don't think. I don't.
Huge.
I'm sure somebody was doing that. I never took it that far. I was just kind of like putting like going into my friends' Gmail accounts and like on their Google Docs and just typing up a document with like weird shit.
Oh man, nope, nothing like that ever happened to me.
Yeah. No.
I was never given any MacBook though, so.
Yeah. We could also, so the way we had this like weird social media called Schoology, which is like a way that teachers could communicate with the students, but there was also like a public thing where like anybody could post to that. So like you could sign into somebody's like Schoology account and like make a post that's not them to like any group that student is a part of, whether it's a club, a class, or just like to the entire grade or class. So
good Lord.
So there was one time that we, I think, I feel bad for this. We got into my buddy Jay's account, and we started, and he had like a blog, and we started putting posts up from him on his blog, like fake posts that we would made on his account. Like it was nothing too bad, but it was just like funny, like dumb shit that we would post under his name. So.
Well, yeah, not secure at all,
Yeah.
school. Way to go. Yeah. So we cut to outside of school. Dade's walking down some stairs, and we now get the guy who was watching him from behind and from the payphone, and he is the Freak. So we're just going to refer to him as that Phantom Freak. Rest of the movie will go by their handles, not their actual names. He asks what his interest is in Kate Libby, though, and he says homicidal, and basically introduces, and that's when Freak introduces himself to Dade, kind of acting like he should know him, but we find out later that even though there's a clear like network of hackers here, Dade didn't really grow up that way, so he doesn't know any other hacker other than himself, I think. Mm-hmm. So after that, a kid comes running down after them, and he keeps saying he needs a handle, and he's nothing without his handle, for online purposes. Freak then invites Dade to a place on Friday, and it's like some sort of nightclub, and we cut directly to that. That's our next scene. It looks like the kind of place that's mostly for hackers only, but it looks cool from the outside.
It does look cool.
Thought.
It's like the ultimate like teenage hangout. You got your skate ramps, you got your neon, you got your giant video game stations.
Yeah, it looked cool as hell.
It's a baller hangout.
I know. And they're all teenagers, so like
God. What I would have give to have a cool hangout spot like that where I can wear a bunch of leather and neon.
And rollerblade inside.
I probably would have been more of a skateboard kid, but there's, which
Yep,
there is a
rollerblading
skateboard guy in this movie, but we'll get to him later.
But skateboarding is bad in this movie. Rollerblading, good.
Yeah, whatever.
So Matthew Lillard is sitting outside, which is his handle is serial killer. And he's selling some sort of mixtape that he made himself. And he's listing off, all the people on the mixtape.
The whole bit is that, like, they're all people that have asphyxiated on their own vomit that he just compiled into this mixtape. Can't get this in stores, man.
Nope. Freak is inside and he's on a payphone again. And instead of putting money into the payphone, he has a recorder with the specific dial tones that would react to the money being dropped in the payphone.
How many people do you think was that a thing? Could people do that? Like,
I have a bonus feature about it. We'll get to it. But it happens quite often in this movie, not just Freak doing it, but it happens a lot. But it acts like it paid, so he's good to go.
Okay. Yeah.
And Dade walks in and sees Kate playing some sort of, again, there's like a huge arcade type game in the background. He walks up to her and says, "That's a nice score for a girl." Eye roll. And she's like, "Fine, you think you can do better? Be my guest." And then some guy from kind of this balcony up above leans down and says, "Is he bothering you? Why don't you come up here?" And she goes up there, but he starts to play the game. He's doing really well. And then the graphics though, oh my God. Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, so apparently this is a real video game. Like,
is it?
Yeah, so it's very common in a lot of movies to, like, avoid, like, copyright infringement is to, like, take popular games of the time. I mean, if you haven't already licensed, like, the title and being able to use it, like, they'll take some kind of concept and then get some 3D artist to make, like, a fake video game. But no, this is a legit game called Wipeout. Because in the credits you can see, like, game Wipeout for PlayStation in the credits. And so I looked it up and no, it's a legit video game that was, like, not super, it's like a cult classic video game essentially. But
was it on PlayStation?
Yeah.
Though?
And apparently there's, like, newer, like, there's a PlayStation 4 version of this game. Like, it's a series that's been going on for a few years after this.
Oh wow.
So yeah. But I don't
crazy.
Yeah. So but I don't know anybody who actually plays it though.
No,
So,
I've obviously never seen it. No. The graphics are crazy, though, and hilarious. He does beat her score, though, and she's pissed, obviously. And Freak walks up to him and goes, "Congratulations, you made an enemy for life." We then cut to outside, and Kate is making out with the guy from the balcony. We learn his name is Curtis. And they're about to take off on his motorcycle, and Dade asks Freak, "Well, what does that guy do?" And he says, "Nothing. You're looking at it. He just sits there and looks slick all day," which I thought was funny. I love some of the one-liners in this movie. They're great. We're then back with Dade at home, and he's hacked into another computer system, and he's messing with you can tell that he's messing with fire alarms, and set the timer for 9:30 a.m. We then cut to Dade back at school, and Freak sees him standing in the hallway, and he's like, "What's up, man?" And he pulls out an umbrella, and all the sprinkler systems go off at once, and everyone is soaked. So that's what he hacked into the night before. Freak starts laughing his head off because he knows he did it. Then Kate walks out, and she's pissed and is like, "What's going on?" And Dade's like, "I guess the pool on the roof must have leaked." A good one-liner again. We're then back in class with Kate and Serial, and they're writing supposedly influential quotes on the board. I'm assuming is some sort of an assignment. Kate ends up writing one of her moms. Her mom turns out to be a very successful author for, I guess you'd call it women's literature at the time.
Sure.
Dade writes a Ginsberg quote down. Teacher's impressed by that. Kate says he's not in this class, and he looks at her and says, "I told you, just give me time. I would be in the same class as you, basically." And the teacher says, "Well, he's on my list, so he's in the class." And then Serial writes an Ozzy Osbourne quote, and the teacher says, "You, however, are not on my list." And he stands up and says, "Oh my God, this isn't woodshop." And then slowly backs out of the room.
And then the title credits start scrolling, and you hear comedic laughing in the background, and that's the end of the movie.
Yes. That's it. Nothing further from here. We cut back to Dade at home with his mom, and his mom's just asking about his school. And she said, "What did we learn today?" And he says, "Revenge." And she goes, "Ooh, so you met a girl." Again, that dynamic with the mom is just super cool. She throws some college forms in front of him and says, "Please fill these out." But he doesn't give a shit about them. So now we're back at, I'm going to call it the Hacker Club.
The Hacker House.
Sure, Hacker House.
Yeah.
They don't name the place. So Serial Freak and Joey are all talking about computers sitting with Dade at a table. And Joey starts to tell them that he hacked into this computer. And he's looking around and gets interrupted by Serial. And he starts pulling out all these books, which are basically instructional manuals for all sorts of government agencies, NSA, FBI. They're different
And
colors.
just, like,
they're
handbooks for
different sizes.
Like kernels and stuff like that. So.
And of course it's written out because why not? Joey gets back to his story though. Well, I'm sorry. I'm cutting a little too far ahead. So, oh yes, he gets back to his story. He's double fisting cigarettes too, by the way. This teenage kid. I just thought that was funny.
He's always smoking. That's his whole
Yep,
thing.
and two at one time.
He's the cool 90s smoking kid.
Yeah. He says he finally figures out that what he hacked into is a bank. And then some sort of ATM in bumfuck whatever city he lists spits out $700. And that was him. And he did that. And he's super excited about it. But Dade, Freak, and Serial all basically are like, dude, you're fucking dumb. You hacked a bank across state lines. The FBI can come after you now and try to find you. He says, well, you guys never tell me anything, so I need to learn. So Freak asks him what the 3 most commonly used passwords are, which he does repeat: love, secret, and sex. Serial also says God because computer programmers think they're God. Serial and Freak tell him he just needs to pull off a really good hack and be known, and, you know, you'll get it. I don't know, recognition. I don't know what the point.
He's got to hack the Gibson man. Whatever the fuck a Gibson
hack the Gibson.
Because that's the whole...
You don't know what a Gibson is?
No.
Gibson was the first major secure operating system.
Okay.
So we think of like Intel today, or I don't know who else is. I can't think of anything up top of my
Intel
head.
is a hardware manufacturer.
So is Gibson.
Okay.
So not only did they make the hardware that went into the computer, but all the coding that would come with Gibsons were like next level at the time.
Okay.
So you didn't really have any firewall or any of those kind of programs that we now download on computers today. That's why hacking was, I guess, popular and really susceptible in the late 80s, early 90s. But Gibsons in particular were the first to come out with some sort of firewall, quote unquote, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you didn't have your NordVPN or your McAfee antivirus back then.
Nope, nothing. It was all programmed into the computer itself. That's how it came.
All right, well, the more you know. I work in IT, and you're literally teaching me stuff about computers, so this is interesting.
If you Google Gibson, it explains it very easily.
Gotcha.
I'm kind of going off on a tangent,
All
but
right.
it's more of like the supercomputer of the movie, though.
Gotcha.
So Dade says you could hack something like that, and that's secure, but you'd need to go on the back door first, because your chances are usually better. And again, even though these were supposedly very secure, there's still plenty of ways to get into these computers. We then see a bunch of awesome 90s graphics again, and literal neon computer network is getting hacked, so it's hard to describe because you can't see us. But Joey figures out, we find out it's Joey that's hacking. He figures out the password, which is God. Shocker. And this screen that is shown looks like a giant computer screen, but it's glass at the same time. Like, it's really hard to explain in person if you haven't seen the movie. But that's what it looks like. And we kind of pan out, and that's when we find out it's Joey hacking in.
It's also Penn Jillette is in this movie. We can't... Is that his last name? From Penn and Teller?
Yeah, I think that's his last name. Yeah,
that's him.
Yeah, he's the security guy.
He's the security guy in this whole like server room that is not what a server room looks like, but it's a movie, so fuck it.
That's the other thing. So again, how we think of server rooms now with just towers and towers of computer and wiring, it's trying to be that, but they again are glass looking.
Yeah, it's very, very stylized with like weird ambient lighting and like everything. Instead of just in this whole movie, there's so many hacking sequences where instead of just showing code, it's just like graphics and like 3D models and shit popping up, which is interesting.
I have a fun fact about that later.
Yeah, because I mean they had.
You know what? Go ahead. Sorry.
They had like people that were experienced in like hacking and computer science on set to make sure that this was like as realistic as possible. But it's like you look at the way that they're like, some of the terminology is legit, but like some of the way that they use it and what they show hacking to be is just like
kind of ridiculous.
I mean, it's like you have to make it exciting, otherwise it's just going to be some people just sitting at a computer just that.
I know.
It's just
hacking away. Yeah. No, I get you for sure. So. And it is very stylized. You're correct. And everything's neon. So.
Well, it's the 90s.
Yeah. Very bright and neon.
Yeah.
So, like we just said, Penn from Penn and Teller is the security guy. And he gets an alert that the system is being hacked and ends up calling Mr. Belford, who is the Plague. And of course, this grown man has a hacker name, but fine.
I love how when people address him, like when they call him the Plague, they call Mr. the Plague.
Right.
Yeah, instead of just Plague, it's just Mr. the Plague.
Yeah, it's amazing. The whole thing is amazing, for sure. But he tells them there's a problem, and they think they have a hacker. So then we kind of we flip back and forth through these next couple scenes, and Joey is then to some sort of file. Looks like it's a garbage file. It says garbage on it. When he opens it up, though, the screen goes crazy. And again, very stylized graphic, 90s graphics here. And then he pops in a floppy disk and downloads the garbage file. We then see the Plague arrive. I'm going to put his name in air quotes every time because he's such a douchebag. We then see him arrive on his skateboard. Grown man skateboarding.
Yes.
100%. Also, he has a black trench coat on, which makes him even douchier.
Have you ever seen Grandma's Boy?
Yeah.
There's the guy, I forget his name.
JT?
Yeah, that's what this guy reminds me of in this movie.
But there's not, in no point in this movie does any character make fun of his attire or his name. Dade kind of does in a couple scenes here, but that's not... nobody really does that. But in Grandma's Boy, they make it a point to make fun of him, and it's hilarious. Yeah. They could have dialed up some of the comedy in this movie, but whatever. So he arrives on his skateboard, and he's going to try to find the hacker. And again, the keyboard he's using is a giant glass screen with giant holes that are orange neon, and that's supposedly his keyboard. So... not practical, but
the typing is also very like search and click,
Yeah, it's like dun 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 the whole time.
Instead of like, sitting with the home row or whatever it is when you're like resting your hands on your keyboard.
Right.
Very much just search and poke.
Yep. So he is, banging away on this light up board, and he ends up calling somebody and tells the guy at the control switch center that he needs to trace a call in progress because, again, dial up. It's exactly how you could find somebody as well. So we cut back to Joey, and his mom busts in the room and just immediately unplugs his computer, and it stops the file before it's fully downloaded. And, oh no, though, the call was traced by the Plague. And Joey ends up hiding the disk in a vent in his room because he thinks it's something important, but he's not sure what it is. So then we cut to Dade, Freak, and Serial arriving at what looks like some sort of underground industrial building. And this is another very common theme in this movie. Awesome graffiti everywhere. But it's also New York in the 90s, so I assume that's probably how it really looked. He asks... before they knock on the door, Dade asks them if they know a hacker named Acid Burn, and Freak and Serial both kind of laugh, and they're like, no, I don't know him. I don't know anybody by that name. Some guy answers the door in a hood, and Freak says his name is Lord Nikon, and he said, "This is Dade. His name's Crash Override." He's like, "Never heard of you," and slams the door in all their faces. And Freak hits the door again and goes, "Come on, man, let us in."
I mean, if someone came up to my door and introduced themselves as Crash Override, I'd probably slam my door too. So.
Oh, just further perpetuating the fact that so 90s, this movie.
For those who don't, this is for our even younger viewers or listeners. Handle is basically your Xbox gamer tag. So it's
there. You go. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. Nikon opens the door back up though and says, "Well, can he do anything?" And Freak's like, "Yeah, man, he's elite." Which elite too.
That's the whole thing. Is that like if you're considered elite, then you're a solid hacker.
Yep, you're the shit.
Yeah.
So they all go in. And then we see all 4 of them hanging out watching TV. And this is our first introduction to Richard Gill, who ends up being the Secret Service ?
Yeah, I think he works for the Secret. Yeah, I don't know. FBI, Secret Service, some kind of government-run agency.
Well, they say Secret Service in the show, and under credits, it's listed as Secret Service agent for people.
Okay.
So, he's hacker enemy number 1 because he's the one hunting all the hackers down. But the Secret Service would not be doing this.
Yeah, no, FBI
even in the
maybe.
90s.
Yeah.
Right. Even in the 90s, the Secret Service had a very specific task, the same task they have now, protect the president and cabinet members, and that's it. That's all their job is. But, yeah, maybe the FBI definitely would have been looking for hackers, I feel like. They probably do now. Or NSA, too.
Well, who knows? You could be hacking the White House and find out that maybe, Clinton, did have sexual relations with that woman. So I don't know. They got their own secrets.
Right. The point of that is I don't think Secret Service is in charge of doing any of the stuff they do in this movie. So there's that.
No, but it sounds badass, and this movie is badass, so.
I guess. FBI would have sounded just as cool. It's still a government agent hunting you down.
I guess. I don't know. But it's like secret, Secret Service. Everybody's hiding in the shadows.
Right. Touche. Nikon then says, "It's showtime," and they flip the TV on to a very popular hacker show called Hack the Planet. It's basically just a TV show that shows you how to hack things, hosted by 2 very, let's call them colorful characters.
Sure, we'll go with that one.
And Dade's basically like, "These guys are jokes. This is stupid. I don't know why we're watching this," but then gets really into it towards the end of the scene.
They're elite, man. These guys are elite.
Exactly. They're elite. We're then back at Joey's house, and he's in the shower. And as soon as he stops the shower, bam, there's dudes with guns, and they rip him out of the shower. And I'm going to mention something here, and I'll probably mention it again. How'd they get in there? Because the mother acts like she didn't even see them or know what's going on until he's starting to get pulled out of the shower. 2, where's your warrant? Still needed those in the 90s, no matter what the crime was. 3, he's a minor. So, what are you doing arresting him without his mom being present? I digress. One of the agents, though, the Secret Service agents, is Mark Anthony from early 90s and 2000s Spanish music fame / J-Lo's husband, ex-husband, one of them. So agents are all over the place in Joey's house. They're taking all his computer stuff, and again, no warrants, no nothing. They're just taking everything. Joey's arrested, and we see Agent Gill on the news again because he's clearly a douche and he likes the attention. We're then in some sort of company boardroom, and a woman walks in, and it's Lorraine Bracco, who was in tons of
that one
gangster
thing that
movies.
one time.
Yeah. Eugene the Plague. Which the fact that your name's Eugene.
Mr. the Plague. It's Eugene is such a name that someone who goes by the Plague would actually be named.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You have a terrible name if you go by the Plague.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mr. the Plague.
Mr. the Plague. So Mr. the Plague tells everyone that there was a virus planted by a hacker, And one of their tankers was tipped over, and they left a note, digital note, threatening if they don't give over $5 million, they'll tip over more boats. And the Plague's basically saying that none of the ships now work on a manual override. They're all controlled through computers, so we have to figure out how to stop this through the computer networking system. We can't do anything else about it. Luckily, he traced the hacker, and Secret Service picked him up this morning so he can go through his files and get the original virus code. Again, no idea why the Secret Service is here doing this, but we'll move on. We then see Eugene, Mr. the Plague, and Lorraine Bracco, who I believe her name is Margot in this movie. They're going down an escalator, reassuring other board members they're going to get it figured out, blah, blah, blah. But then they kind of branch off into their own, couple, and talking about how clearly they planted the virus. And this is the plan. It's all laid out now. So they're the bad guys of the movie. We find out. We're now at a police station, and they didn't find the disc that Joey burned the garbage file onto, the floppy disk that he shoved in the air vent. But they'll release him and keep him under surveillance until his trial and see if they can figure out where he hid it. We're now back at school, and Freak, Dade, and Serial are all talking about Joey's arrest, and, that's crazy. But they end up inviting Dade over to a party at Kate's house that night. We then cut to Mr. the Plague at Dade's house. Nope, his house, sorry. And he's playing some sort of VR game, which
I feel
look familiar to you at all?
Kind of. I mean, I feel like it's the most... in the 90s, this would have been, VR was not really a thing. You had your Nintendo Virtual Boy, but it was all, red, and it was just, it constantly gave people headaches, and it wasn't like you could look around.
Yeah.
But
No.
I feel like... I don't know. That's pretty much how normal VR is today, though, so...
Yeah, that, enclosure thing. I remember seeing those in Dave and Buster's years ago, where that's how they did virtual reality. So
yeah, you had but you had to it was this giant thing that would drop down, and you had to move it with your hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and you couldn't get out of the little it was almost like a cage.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what he's playing. And Agent Gill walks in and says that he found something, and it's a file on Dade Murphy because they figured out who he is. We then see all the agents at his house with Gill and Mr. the Plague, and they're kind of interrogating him and asking about the virus, and he's like, yo, I don't have anything to do with this. I don't know what's going on. The Plague kind of makes everybody leave the room, and he's like, come on, man, hacker to hacker, just help me out. And those other guys are losers. He's saying, we can just get this done. And
which I like how Plague is giving orders in this situation. Or
right.
Gill is working for the Secret Service, and no, it's the IT guy from this privately owned company that's calling the shots here.
Literally, the whole time. So Dade's like, fuck off. I don't play ball with others. I'm not helping you. So then the Plague smashes the stereo with a bat and is like, we'll figure it out with or without you. And dude, fuck you. You just broke his shit again.
He broke his stereo,
the warrants?
man. How's he gonna listen to his sick techno music and Rage Against the Machine ripoff bands, man?
I don't know. Not on that. So he basically just threatens him again and is like, we'll be in touch. Then we get a quick dream sequence of Dade and Kate making out, and she busts in the room, they make out, and then Secret Service busts in right after and start arresting him, and he kind of jolts up out of sleep, and that's important to note later. We then cut to everyone at this party. Kate's house, again, so 90s house music. Nikon is DJing, leather everywhere, and spandex. Also
Can't forget about
everywhere.
the spandex. It's a privilege, not a right.
Exactly.
As
Serial says, because he says, look at that pooper. Which is one of my favorite lines of the movie, for sure. It's a privilege, not a right, man. We then cut to some sort of AA type meeting, and I'm sure this is court ordered for Joey. Yeah. And he's just like, I'm not an addict. I don't know why I'm here. And
I'm not addicted to my computer, I swear.
Yeah.
Even though I
just got in trouble with it. Oh. So we're back to the party, and we see Agent Mark Anthony's there dancing around with all the kids. Mm-hmm. Then all four guys, Freak, Dade, Nikon, and Cyril, are now in Kate's room, and she's got a very fancy laptop, and they're all admiring it. Then they turn off the lights because they want to see it in the dark, because, again, those graphics don't look good in the light. You need the darkness. Then Kate busts in with Curtis, and they're going at it. Like, they're about to do it, and they're just sitting there in the dark, not saying anything. Then, finally, she looks up or something and sees them and kind of shoots up. And
I think Nikon or Freak or something says her... They say burn. Someone says burn.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember. I didn't put that as a note, but I'm sure you're right, for sure. So instead of getting mad at them, though, she's like, "Oh yeah, my sweet laptop.
Oh yeah, check
like,
out
let
this
me show
sweet
you."
laptop, man.
Yeah, she's clearly a hacker too. So
They're so thick. It's like this thick. Look at laptops.
yeah. Well, oh my God, my mom had one for her job in like 95 or 96, and it's so heavy and huge. And
It's got a 28.6 BPS modem, guys. Come on. And it's 3 times faster than the Pentium. And it's got a killer refresh rate. Whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whatever that all means. She is not happy Dade's with them, though. And even though he's the one that knows the most about the computer, she's not happy that he's there. So I think it's Freak who says, "Calm down, Burn," and says something else. And he goes, "You're Acid Burn? You're the one that fucked up my TV station?" And then kind of get into this back and forth there. But then and now they know who each other are, too. So we cut to Mr. the Plague and Margot, who are clearly sleeping together. And he tells her he hacked into the NCIC database and of the FBI, and he's looking up Dade's parents, just getting background kind of on Dade as well. We cut back to Kate's house, and he snuck back into play. Dade snuck back into play more with the computer, and this is when they get in onto that, oh, it's got a killer refresh rate, and this is a lot of machine, and what you just said. And there's just so much back and forth computer crap, I didn't bother to write it all down. She then challenges him to some sort of, hacker challenge. Mm-hmm. And if she wins, he's her slave for the day. Not sex slave, literally a bitch for the day.
Like coding slave. He's got to do all of the shit work.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And he says, "Well, if I win, we gotta go on a date. That's our first date." So the first task, we cut to all of them, and they're, going through with these bets. The first task that they are challenged is to mess with the Gill guy, the Secret Service guy, and get one back for Joey. So we see Dade at this moment spray painting a fucking keyboard camo colors, which, aside from the fact that it's camo, that would never happen. Spray paint is wet. That would get right into those keys. They would never move again as soon as they dried. And
he's got this whole bit with, I think it's in this part of the movie, that or later on, when he's, doing, the shit from Taxi Driver in front of the mirror, but instead of guns, he has floppy disks.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is the scene for sure.
Oh my God. It was so cringy. It was so cringy.
Oh, God. I know. A lot of the montages in this movie are oh, God. Yeah. So all the other Freak, Nikon, Serial, they're all going to be the judges for this contest. And they start out with, it's a montage again of hacks. So Kate gets into Gill's bank account and maxes out a credit card. Dade puts his phone number in a personal ad, leading to tons of super inappropriate calls to his office line, which is pretty funny. And again, just throughout this whole process, they're using dial-up. So this time they're on payphones, though, which I have a bonus feature about it later, but it's real. Mm-hmm. That's exactly how you could get internet back then as well, if you weren't at your house. And everyone is now back at the hacker club, and Dade and Kate are tied, according to the judges. Then we see another dream sequence of Dade and Kate, but this time it's Kate who had the dream. So, again, just setting that up for later. Yeah. We then see Dade get a package. It's a brand new laptop. Again, it looks similar to Kate's.
It's clear. It's transparent.
Right.
Which,
again, everything in the 90s was clear.
Well, the interesting thing about clear electronics is that they were actually kind of started in prisons because, prisoners were allowed to have electronics and like other like media devices to a certain extent and to a certain extent. But they had to be clear or transparent so that way you could actually see inside of them. And they had to be like clipped together. They couldn't be like screwed. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there was definitely a trend in the late 90s, early 2000s where everything was clear.
Yeah. I mean,
phones were clear, purses were clear.
I want them to bring that back, though. I want the old, like, I know that they just re-released the new iMacs and they're all colorful and stuff, but I want like the translucent plastic, like old iMac Game Boy Color style. I want them to bring that back.
Yeah, that you can see all the wiring and stuff.
It looks so cool.
Yeah. So this is exactly how the laptop is. You're right. It's clear. But it also came custom with a creepy message from Mr. the Plague. So he's basically just like, I'm watching you, and here's your new laptop, but I'm still watching you. I don't know why he gave him the laptop.
I would have immediately just formatted that hard drive and just reinstalled the OS.
That's exactly what he does. He ends up taking it out and just, because I'm sure it was supposed to be some sort of like tracking device.
Sure.
But I'm sure he took all that shit out of there.
Yeah.
So we then cut to Joey's house, and his mom is ungrounding him because she feels bad. Joey immediately gets up and grabs the disc and heads out and meets with Freak in, I think, a park. Maybe Central Park. I don't know. Looks big. But Freak notices that he is followed, and agents are there, of course. But before that, he does tell Freak that he copied this garbage file, and he's like, so what? There's nothing on garbage files. And he's like, no, it's got to be a big deal. Here, take the disc. And before he can do that, or not before he can do that, he does give Freak the disc, and they take off running. And we see Freak kind of hide it in a public... At first, she didn't know where it was, but we find out later what it is. It's a public place. So Freak is then at home, and he's shredding stuff. And we all see agents swarm his house now and arrest him. But at first, it's a dream. So his mom walks in, and before she can open the window to the bedroom, they're, again, agents kicking in this fucking window, breaking down her doors and arresting him for breaking some computer law. Again, none of this would ever happen.
What was the point of having the dream sequence where he gets arrested if he still ends up getting arrested in the next scene?
I don't know. And it's like back to back.
Yeah.
So like, what was the point?
It's like
it's your worst nightmare
what's the point
scenario?
of foreshadowing if it's just going to happen right after?
I know. I don't get it. But that's exactly what happens, and he gets arrested. So he gets to jail, and he's given one phone call, and of course he hacks the phone because he can. He ends up calling Kate, and he tells her you have to figure it out now. Like, I'm in jail now, Joey's in jail now, we got to know what the fuck's on that disc. And he says, I think one of the funniest lines, I put it in that place. I can't read.
I put it in that place that I put that one thing that one time.
Right. It's funny. But we immediately cut to her, and it's a men's public bathroom, and she is it's behind a condom vending machine, and she's pulling it out and walking away, and she knew exactly where it was, so that was a good description. She and I think Nikon end up going to Dade's house, and they want his help.
No, it's cereal.
Is it cereal? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's right, because he goes in the kitchen and starts eating all the food. She's like, look, I need your help, and he's like, hey, I can't, he doesn't tell her why specifically, but he's like, I just really can't help you. And she's like, fine, can you at least make a copy so in case we go to jail, we have something to give our lawyers. So he does. We then see Dade, and he has called Mr. the Plague and tells him to turn on his laptop. Plague tells him to turn on the laptop. We then see a screenshot of his mom's criminal record, which is, of course, made up by Mr. the Plague, but he's an asshole, so he's basically threatening him, if you don't help me, your mom's going to be arrested, and computers don't lie, so she'll go to jail. We then see Dade on a payphone outside, and he tells the Plague that Kate, didn't even know what the disc was, but here, like I got it from her, basically. So then we see a limo pull up, and Plague is skateboarding alongside the car, holding on to the handle and skateboarding, which is super cool.
Yes.
And he gives him the disc, and Dade has instant regret and starts to run after the car, but they're gone. So then we cut to Dade at Kate's house with Nikon and Serial, and they're looking at the disc on Kate's laptop, and Dade kind of flies in, and he's like, look, unfortunately, this happened. I gave the disc to the guy, and as soon as he says that, Serial or whoever's messing on the computer, I can't remember who it is like, no, this is weird. Like, you have to all look at this. This file's weird. So they figure out that this garbage file is not actually a garbage file. It's a virus that's going to tip over these tankers. It's a worm, and it's eating little pieces of money and / data. And Joey didn't get it all to figure out exactly what it was, but they can tell based on what he has, this is the end result.
Also, Dade just casually drops that he was zero cool, and he was just like, oh, by the way, I used to be a hotshot hacker.
Right, because immediately this is when he tells them, like, oh,
Yeah.
shit, I gave the copy to Mr. the Plague, and now, we're fucked. And they all are like, oh, my God, why'd you do that? And he's like, I have a record, and I'm zero cool. And everyone freaks out because, they all know who he is.
And they just immediately believe him, too.
Right. Like, they don't no more questions after that. They're just like, oh, my God, okay. But I guess maybe why would you admit that's who you were? And you didn't initially, you know what I mean? So if you're trying to be cool.
But it's like, so it was brought up by the guys at Red Letter Media who were talking about this movie. Yeah, it was just like, anything that is just, like, said in this movie is just immediately taken, like, seriously. Like,
yeah.
Like, and then there's, like, the bit towards the end where Lillard, serial killer, is, like, up on all the screens, like, telling everybody, like, what's going on.
Right, with no proof whatsoever.
Yeah, with no proof. He's just like, oh, by the way, yeah, just so you know, this is going on. And everybody's just like, well, fuck, game over, I guess. I mean, we all saw, dude with dreads on the TV tell us that it was true, so it must be true.
Must be true. Well, Dade apologizes, though, for fucking this all up and giving the copy to Mr. the Plague. And he says, look, I'll make it up. I'll hack the Gibson. I can do it. And Nikon's like, well, with me, you can do it in less time, blah, blah, blah. And then we kind of go down the line and everybody agrees to help him. So they need to go shopping, which I guess entails of diving into the corporation's garbage and looking for codes or something. Because that's exactly what they're doing. Kate and Dade are at this huge dumpster, and they pop in, and they find what they're looking for, and they're on their way out, and a security guard pops up, and she fires a fucking flare at him. Which is crazy. But good for you. We then see Serial inside the Secret Service office, and he's pretending to be some sort of, like, maintenance person for the phones. So he ends up putting something on the secretary to Mr. Gill's office, something on the phone line, so they could. I'm sure it's a tap. We find out in a second it's a tap, and then we see Nikon walking around. I think the same building because he ends up passing the Plague, and he's looking at modems and computers, so they can get in there a little easier. I'm assuming into their systems.
Because to preface, Nikon has a photographic memory. So that's why
I did forget to mention that.
So that's why he's able to go in and just memorize all the different addresses for the modems.
Right. So that's exactly what he's doing. We cut to the Plague and Margot again, and she's like, he's basically telling her the disc didn't have the whole file, so they don't know he doesn't think they know what they're looking for still, but she's like, oh shit, she thinks this whole thing's falling apart, basically. He's like, we need to actually launch the virus then and get them all arrested, basically, so they won't talk shit. And you're in too deep now, so you just got to go with this. And she's like, oh, my God, fine. Literally no qualms about it after he explains they might go to jail. So the Plague then calls Mr. Gill, which, again, why are you in charge of him? And basically threatens him and says, you need to get warrants on all of them for the morning. And we hear Mr. Gill call and get warrants on all of them, and we see Serial and Nikon listening in, so they call Kate, and they we got a problem now because they're going to come arrest us in the morning. Then we cut to them all in the subway, and they're, just talking back and forth about what's on the disc and how they're going to get rid of this. And then Serial sees a memo, so I don't know if he's forking through something or what, about the Da Vinci virus, and it's all clear now. They're blaming everything on hackers for the Ellingson mess, for the oil tankers, and it's all supposed to happen tomorrow. So they got to get a plan together and get going. Kate ends up leaving. She's like, look, we're going to go get help, and Dade goes with her because they only have like 3 hours or so till they're going to get arrested. Mm-hmm. We then cut to, I think, a rave of some sort. Again, very 90s everywhere, including the lighting.
Lots of techno. Or no, I think this is where they go to meet Razor and Blade, right? This is where we get is where we get the I think they're back at the normal like hacker house hangout. Or no, it's not.
No, it doesn't look like Razor, that. It's dark.
But it's not techno, it's that rip-off Rage Against the Machine band that's playing.
Right.
Which the song that they're playing though is kind of a banger though. So, just going to put that out there.
There's an actual term for that music. It's called hardcore.
Okay. I just, like, it sounds like... I say Rage Against the Machine ripoff because, like, the style and, like, it sounds exactly like Rage. So
yeah, I know. Yeah. I know. And you're right. That's exactly what they sound like. But, yes, they're going to find Razor and Blade, the guys from Hack the Planet, the show. And Dade's like, why? They're freaks. We don't want their help. So... they kind of get separated in the crowd because, again, that Rage Against the Machine rip-off band starts playing and everyone starts moshing around. So they eventually make it back to each other, though, and we see them outside of their room or in their room. I don't know. At first you think they're outside because they're on a bunch of monitors, but then we see that they're actually in the same room as Blade and Razor. Yeah. So they basically tell them what's going on and say, look, we need your help. And they're like, at first, they are like, no. But they need Kate says, we need your help overloading the Gibson because we need, X amount of time to get all this file. And they're like, well, if you're going to hack the Gibson, you need more of an army, not just us two. So they kind of make a plan that all the hackers around the world will unite to help them take this task on, basically. Mm-hmm. Then we see Nikon and Serial. I think they're also back in the park, and they get paged. Yeah. Also amazing 90s things. And they're told to get to Grand Central. So we then see cops going through the streets trying to find them, and they're rollerblading. And they're following them, and Dade has set up some sort of virus to get the street lights to go bonkers and hold the traffic up, which ends up working. So they all get away from them at the moment and make it to Grand Central Station. Joey meets them there as well. And again, they're all on payphones in their little payphone booths, about to dial in using the payphones. So we see some more amazing graphics, and we see them trying to hack into the system. We then see everyone's computer at the company going crazy, and the Plague is at work at the time in the crazy glass server room.
And we get the sweet montage of everybody in the phone booth spinning around.
Yep. That's a cool shot. It's still a cool shot looking though.
Yeah, but I'm just imagining...
I think it's cool.
I'm just imagining, like, them just sitting, like, or standing in a phone booth that's on top of, like, some kind of, like, spinning thing so that they could spin the phone booth and then just, like, fake typing on the computer. Right.
So Plague and Margot are in this server room though, and everybody's watching what he's doing to try to get. So every hacker, Kate, Nikon, Serial, Joey, everybody is laying little viruses. So they just buy time for Dade, who's the main person who's trying to get in there. So after they lay their virus, they then try to go for the same garbage file, and like whoever gets there first is going to get it and get it downloaded all the way. That's basically what's happening as the spinning thing is going on with the payphones. So Dade has finally gotten to the file, but just as he gets it, Plague kicks him off. Joey is close, though, so they all help him try to get it, and Kate's payphone rings, and it's the guys from Hack the Planet, and she's like, yeah, go now. So then we see kind of a montage of people all around the world in different countries trying to hack in and help them, which I thought was kind of cool.
You got your Russian guy, you got your Tokyo, you got your
French, I think,
somewhere
in there too.
else in the world. Yeah.
Yeah. So the file is close, and now it's getting copied. And they tell the Hack the Planet guys to now kill the Gibson. And then we see the Plague just losing his shit over, in front of all these people. And the virus is not only killing parts of their system, but it's also killing the Da Vinci virus that was set forth by the Plague. So at this moment too, we also see police arriving, and initially you're like, oh crap, they're there, but we turn back and they're not there, but they do end up finding them. They think they're good and out of the woods though, and then they turn around, the Secret Service agents are there to grab them. Dade tosses the disc that has the downloaded file into the trash, and Serial wasn't in the montage of hacking, and he's outside of the station or whatever, the train station they were at, and Dade starts yelling at him that they're trashing us, and Serial gets the hint and goes looking through the trash. Dade and Kate are then being interrogated, and Dade is trying to take the blame and basically saying, like, she doesn't know anything. She's my girlfriend. I'm the one that did everything. But then we hear that his mom has showed up. Agent Gill is basically telling her that her son's in huge trouble and he's going to jail forever. And she's like, you know what? Fuck you. Like, my son's super smart. He wouldn't do anything illegal. And,
Way
I'm
to
going to
go,
get a
Mama
lawyer.
Murphy.
Yeah,
Out
stepping
here
it up.
supporting her son. And
She's Mama Baron.
Yeah, out here supporting her son in his endeavors to take down a private oil company.
Right. Which he's not even doing. He's essentially saving it. So
Right.
she's not wrong.
Yeah.
He's using what he knows for good, not bad.
Yeah.
We then see the Plague and Margot drinking champagne, thinking they got away with it all. We cut back to the police station, and all of a sudden Serial is broadcasting on every single TV everywhere. He basically lays out the whole plan and who exactly was to blame, Mr. the Plague and Margot. And she sits up and starts freaking out, and then we see that she's alone because, of course, the Plague bailed on her. And then we cut to Margot being arrested. And finally, one of the last scenes of the movie, we get to see Plague on a plane dressed as an old man in disguise. But as soon as he asks for a pillow and tries to put it behind his head, Agent Gill handcuffs him, and he is now arrested. We then see Dade and Kate, and they are, in fact, on a date, and she is wearing a dress.
But Dade is
Again.
wearing this, I can't tell if it's a trench coat or if it's some kind of like weird style, but it almost looks like he's kind of wearing a dress too.
I want to say that he's wearing a kilt, question mark, an
maybe.
all black kilt over top black pants.
Okay.
I feel like that's the
Maybe.
outfit.
I don't know.
I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but her outfit too, by the way. Let's just get on that for a second. Angelina Jolie in your looks like a space woman outfit. Her dress. But this is clearly outlining that Dade won the bet. Everyone decided he won. So he then asks her if they want to go swimming, and we see them in a pool, fully clothed though, but fine. He tells her she's pretty good though, and they make a good team. And she says, yeah, well, in the beginning, it would have saved yourself a lot of trouble if you just admitted how awesome I was. Then we look up and we see huge skyscrapers and their names are lit up on them. I don't know if
Crash
they
and
did
burn.
that hack. Yeah.
I think it's supposed to
crash
be that
and
like
burn.
Dade did it.
Did he? Okay.
Because he's cool
I couldn't
like
tell.
because his name is Dade.
Right. I couldn't tell if it was implied he did it or like the friends did it. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Anyway, it was a cool effect though on the giant buildings because it's not that they're projecting a light, it's that the individual lights in the building
But
are
it's like
lit up in a
multiple
way.
buildings that are like in the background and like and in front too, so it's like perfect viewing. I'm guessing I think it's Serial earlier in the movie. Once Dade figures out that Kate is acid burn, he says the phrase "crash and burn," so maybe it was Serial that did it. We never really see like Serial doing anything like hacking wise in this. Yeah.
No, you don't. So they start to make out in the pool, and that's
the movie.
Yeah.
I love this movie. It's total garbage, but it's great.
It is great. It's still great. I love it still. I as well. I love watching it every time.
Yeah, this is my first time watching it, so I had a blast watching it. So this was great.
Good. I'm excited that you liked it.
All right, should we get into the trivia here?
Yeah, I have some bonus stuff for sure.
Right on.
Go ahead.
I mean, I don't really have much in terms of like actual like fun facts or trivia. I do have a note here. I think from Shout Out Factory. There's like a brief clip, like a brief interview with Matthew Lillard, where apparently he had screen tested to play the role of Dade.
Okay.
So, yeah, he was gonna play that, but ended up going to Johnny Lee Miller. But he was like, they still liked him, so they were like, hey, you could play this other character. And that I feel like that kind of set the precedent of like who Matthew Lillard would play for the rest of the 90s.
I mean, yeah.
But yeah, so
that's it for you.
Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. I was more just kind of like, I just want to like talk about the movie rather than like, because I also couldn't find a lot in terms of like the behind the scenes. I didn't really look at like IMDb trivia or anything like that. I saw the Matthew Lillard thing, and then there's like, in terms of behind the scenes, there's, Polaroids that were released of like the shoot and stuff, and I saw that they actually did bring on like former famous hackers to kind of make sure that it was realistic, as realistic as you could say this movie is in terms of what hacking actually, like, there are some techniques and the terminology is there, and I guess I have to give it credit because, like I said, it is a movie, and just watching someone type at a computer where it's just lines of code would be super fucking boring. And so they do kind of have to stylize it a little bit so that people actually get an idea of what's going on. So. Right.
Plus, it's a movie, so it's got to look cool. Yeah. So I have some bonus feature stuff. Like we mentioned at the top, Angelina Jolie and Johnny Lee Miller, they started dating at the time of this movie, and then were married 6 months after it wrapped filming, so very quickly. But that obviously didn't last.
Nope.
They were only married for...
It's like 3 years. Yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. We know this now because of what you said about the typing and the code, but everything was graphics that they used. They didn't use any actual hacking, and it was all some sort of animation. Again, movie, got to make it look cool. The phone hack that is shown by Freak with the payphone and the dial and the recorder is real. You could actually do that.
I know that you could go through like hook a laptop up to a payphone and do shit with that. But in terms of like recording the dial tone, I didn't know that was a thing.
Apparently it was real, and it was happening all the time.
It's brilliant. That's so good.
Yeah.
You don't think you could? No, there's no. I don't think they. I mean, their payphones still exist, but I don't think. I'm sure they must have found a way to like make it so that people can't do that anymore, right?
Well, payphones don't exist for one, but two, where?
I mean, there's not very many of them out there, but they are still out there. I've seen them.
Well, yeah, if you got to put money into it, I'm sure you could hack it the same way. I'm sure it hasn't really changed. When the hackers test Dade's knowledge with those series of books, those are actually called the Technicolor Rainbow. They were real books coveted by hackers in the 80s and 90s because they did actually contain information on how the internet worked and code and all sorts of information that trusted DoD networks had encoded in them. So they were real. When the hackers take over the Gibson with the Cookie Monster virus, so there's a scene, we didn't really go in depth to the viruses that are shown at that time when everybody's helping Dade hack into the Gibson, but there's one in particular that is a graphic of a Cookie Monster eating cookies, and that is a real virus. If you typed in cookie, it would go away for a certain amount of time, and then if you typed in Oreo, apparently it went away for a longer period of time.
That makes sense because, like,
interesting. There's
the bit where, they say it's the cookie virus, and Penn is like, what do I do? And then Plague is like, type cookie, you idiot. And it's like, at the time, I'm sure that, like, people would have understood that, but, like, I had no idea, like, how is he supposed to know that cookie is supposed to be typed? But I guess, like, for the time, if this was, like, a very popular virus that was going around then.
Yeah, apparently it was. It was popular in the early 90s.
Yeah.
This film is loosely based on the true story of 𝐇𝐀𝐂𝐂𝐊𝐄𝐑𝐒, either one. He was a young German computer security enthusiast who got involved in a plot to sell hacked U.S. military information to the KGB in the early 1980s.
Did he ride around on roller skates and have a hot girlfriend like Angelina Jolie?
And leather, probably,
and have
everywhere.
really cool jacket and leather and talked like he was.
Maybe.
It talked like a guy from the UK that doesn't know how to do a great American accent.
Well, he was German.
Well, he was German, yeah. So
yeah. The bad guys in the movie, Mr. the Plague and Margot, use a worm to shave off pennies on transactions. So what you kind of think now of, everything's electronic, so money's even electronic. This is just the early stages of that they're showing in this movie. This is a well-known hack, though, that has been used multiple times in multiple different scenarios, not only in the U.S., but all over the world.
And in Office
and it's
Space.
Called... Yep, and in Office Space. And that's my next note. It's called salami slicing or penny shaving. And again, while it is common in the movies, notably Superman 3 and Office Space, it is actually a thing that happened in real life. And finally, this movie only made $7.6 million at the box office for its total run when it came out.
What was the initial budget?
$20 million.
Yikes! Yikes!
I know. Ouch. Critics also hated it. They blasted it forever. But in comparison, there's another really well-known early 90s hacker movie called The Net, starring Sandra Bullock. And it came out the same year, but grossed $50.7 million. So the critics would say that while there are two movies that focus on hacking, Hackers is definitely geared towards a younger generation and computer geeks and kids that were super into that stuff. Not, The Net had like a story. Yeah. The Net, which you should also watch. We won't cover it here. It's not a cult classic, but it's a cool movie. I mean, again, 90s everywhere, but I think it's kind of ahead of its time, the movie, definitely when it came out, for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Even though it is the most 90s trash that I've ever seen, it is.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a cult classic, again, due to the lovely 90s nostalgic shit everywhere.
Yeah.
Really captured a lot of the most popular things happening in the 90s, probably especially in New York with that club and the roller skating everywhere. And, I also think...
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it just basically, like, you take the 90s, a whole decade, and you put it into an hour and 45 minutes, you get Hackers.
Yep.
So
Exactly. I also thought, though, that the character development in particular made this movie super fun. And with the certain graphics and stuff they implemented, the glass, server room stuff, I think that was really ahead of its time, too. So
yeah, I think, like, in terms of, like, the visual effects and stuff, I think it was good. I feel, in terms of, like...
Yeah.
Character development, though, I don't know. It's like, I can't say that there wasn't really like a standout character that I was like really rooting for.
Fair, because it's supposed to be Dade. And you don't really feel that way.
No, I don't know. I didn't really like Dade as a character that much. He felt very bland. I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I don't know.
Yeah. So that is Hackers. I'm so glad you liked it.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a lot of fun watching this movie. I feel like I am probably going to watch it again sometime soon.
Yay.
I don't know, but all right, so what do we got going on for the next episode?
So for the next episode, we're watching the original Evil Dead.
Okay. Gotcha.
And
another one that I have
so
yet
excited.
to see. I know.
Oh my God.
I just know that Bruce Campbell is in it. And my sophomore English teacher's name was also Bruce Campbell. So that's...
Ash is in the building. It's going to be fun and amazing. And I didn't say it at the top, but I'll say it now just to remind everybody to follow us on Instagram, like and subscribe us on Apple and Spotify, and get those numbers up, because the more people you share it with, the more people who will listen, the better it is for us.
And if you're also interested in sponsoring the show, hit us up.
We're also open for that.
We're open to that, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into this episode of the Cult Cinema Podcast. We will catch you on the next one.